Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. We are once again playing some Turbodepths. We're trying a few little bits of tweakage here and there out, but it's nice to get more reps in with the deck, which is obviously a deck that I'm kind of synonymous with these days, and I do love playing. For those who are not familiar, Dark Depths makes a 20/20 when it has no counters on. We remove the counters with Hexmage, or we make a copy that has no counters using the stage. And our whole deck is designed to protect this and make this happen. So we've got some discard to punch a hole through. We've got some Knot of the Swells to protect the creature. We've got some Pithing Needles to stop Wasteland, Caracas, etc, etc. A bunch of tutors and some fast mana to help power that out. There's a few little bullets hidden in the mana base, so like Bojuka Bog, for example. The Ghost Quarter to blow up opposing scary opponents. We can't play around Wasteland because we're normally Pithing Needle Wasteland. We have Sejiri Steppe to protect our creature, and a couple of Boseijus we can find off the Sylvan Scrying to then blow things like Blood Moon or Ensnaring Rage, that sort of jam up. We are playing the Rainbow list today, so we've got our 8 Rainbow lands alongside the Petals as well. When it comes to spells in the main deck, we are just playing the Golgari suite. I don't really want any Stifles. The card isn't that impressive to me, but we're running these 2 Inquisitions in that slot. You could run the Stifles there if you want to, but I think you want to max out on Needles before you start considering Stifles. What this mana base does give us, though, is the reliability to cast our spells, which is quite important when we're trying to do one linear powerful thing. Sideboard wise, this is why I want to play Rainbow today. We are playing 3 Hydroblast. So this blows up Magus of the Moon and it blows up Blood Moon. Obviously it can be difficult to get that mana. If we don't have a Rainbow land to then float in response to the thing, we're not going to be able to just destroy it necessarily. But we do have 4 Lotus Petals which we might be reaching to try and Hydroblast stuff. So this can kill those, but also Hydroblast is in a spot at the moment that is really good, really. So you have the initiative deck, you know, it's got some decent targets, but then the best aggro deck in the format, and generally one of the best decks in the format full stop in my opinion, is the Turbo Muxus deck, which definitely goes underneath what we do a lot of the time. So a little Hydroblast in there can really make a difference. So our hate for Blood Moon is kind of also going to be hate that doubles up as protecting us against these new Goblin decks that are absolutely smashing everyone. We do have 1 Sudden Shock which we can reach to blow up things like Magus of the Moon. Not too shabby against Cephalid Breakfast either. Has various uses, kills Opposition Agent as well, which is something that Hydroblast doesn't. But that's pretty much where we are with that. Everything else is as you'd expect. We've got some Artifact Hate, we've got a little bit more Hand Disruption, some Graveyard Disruption, which we can also use with some discards against some combo matchups, and a couple of Legolas' quick reflexes to protect against the sort of slower white control-y matchups. And that's it, that's the deck. The versions I play of this deck, you know, they tweak by a few cards here and there, and we're just trying stuff out. Today I really want to see if this Hydroblast is worth it in the sideboard, or if we're just going to get caught short by people playing out Blood Moons when we don't have the blue mana up. Alright, let's start Turbodepths and see how it goes. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Right, our opening hand doesn't actually get us to our 2020, so we're going to have to send this one back. This hand very much gets us to our 2020. I will keep this. I think we're probably getting rid of a Dark Depths here. I think we can afford to have, like, is that right? Like, we have the Ghost Quarter to hit, like, a problem land. Then we just want to run out, have multiple copies of our combo. Like, if we lose our Urborg, that's all of our black mana. So I don't think we can afford to throw that back. So we will play out this Urborg first. This means if we draw the Vampire Hexmage, we can just go for it next turn. We're also playing against Archon, who plays all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So, who knows? Tiger from our opponent. A Goblin Lackey. Alright, so we're going straight into a matchup where our new sideboard plan is going to be useful. So I'm not sure what year it is where Goblins is arguably the best deck, but it's pretty cool. Okay, let's Thoughtseize our opponent here and see what we're working with. Namesticker Goblin, and some less exciting things. I guess we take one of the Namesticker Goblins, and I will play this Thespian stage. I'd rather we have the stage wastelanded than the depths, because the depths is harder for us to find, because the stage or the Hexmage both do the thing. Right, so let's see what they go here. They don't really have anything good to put in with a Lackey. They're just going to jam 2 Hierarchs and attack for 3. They could put in Namesticker Goblin, and they might have found something good. But this is their last turn to have anything going before we get to jam our 2020 down their throat. I'm getting the impression that our opponent is on the food chain list, which is a bit of a different beast. So in our opponent's upkeep, we'll do this because they might have a Wasteland in their deck. The one way they can answer this is a Sting Scourger, which might be a singleton in their deck. Alright. 2020 doing the work. So now we get to play these Hydroblasts, which is something I'm quite excited about. And this Sudden Shock. We don't know how deep into Wastelands are, but we probably don't need this Bojuka Bog, so that's something that we can get rid of. The Not of This World's probably a little bit less enticing here as well. They could have like Dead Gone and Sting Scourger type stuff. Question is, how much do we need these needles? If they're on the food chain build, they're not really heavily into Wastelands, but they do still have some stuff we might want to hit with this. So I think we're kind of looking here. Maybe we could add in some more. Like, it's a case of, do we want these needles and Not of This World? And how are we going to approach this? So Pithing Needle can't stop food chain, but we can stop Conspicuous Snoop from doing some combo stuff. I think that's probably going to be better than the Not of This World most of the time. I don't mind having a Not of This World in here. We do have some ways of checking our opponent's hand as well. And if they're just sandbagging a load of answers, we can kind of try and play through that. So this is good against Magus, but we don't really go towards our combo here. So I think we're going to mulligan this. This is a turn 2 2020 with turn 1 hand disruption if we want it. So we throw back the Ghost Quarter here. So we can crop rotate for Urborg, Thoughtseize our opponent, and then make Vampire Hexmage on turn 2. That's a little bit all in, perhaps, but that kind of is the nature of our deck, to be honest. Is this going to be a Chalice for 1? It is going to be a Chalice for 1. Okay. An Urborg would be a lovely draw. Didn't quite get there with the Urborg. I'll play this Mana Confluence out. We just need a little bit more mana. We can obviously turn our Thespian stage into a black source by copying our Mana Confluence, but we need a little bit more mana to do that. We do have a path to a 2020 here. There's a Badlands. There is a Goblin Matron. What is this going to find? Sticker Goblin, presumably, or Muxus, depending on which half they don't have in hand. That's usually my guess, but they could go for a different line here. A Ringleader, sure. They just want to gas up. Sylvan Scrying, you say? Interesting. There's no way we can use this Dark Depths right now. That's Sylvan Scrying. This gets us... It probably is the Urborg, just to turn on our Hexmage. Ideally, what I want to draw is a bit of fast mana next turn, so we can speed things up a touch. Because I don't think our opponent's going to be blistering in their speed right now. I think they're just going to play a Ringleader. Yeah, get some more cards in their hand. They're relying on this Chalice of the Void to do some work, which isn't an unfair thing to want. Okay, so that's quite the scary thing to see there. Yeah, so we take 3 here. And then next turn, they are odds on to put Muxus into play, which is not a thing we really get to deal with. So we don't have the fast mana here. So we probably deploy the Urborg first. And that way we can Hexmage here. And then we do have an interesting choice that we're probably going to go for because we already have the land here. So we can remove the counters off the Chalice and then Thoughtseize away this Muxus. And then next turn make a 2020 anyway. That seems like a solid plan. Okay. We can beat the things that aren't Muxus. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the chances are they can get something going here. Like a Spirit Guide. Or another Namesticker Goblin. I think we are just supposed to take this Muxus. And leave them with these 3 cards. So next turn we have a 2020. Now, our opponent can probably Trashmaster and Namesticker Goblin here. Well, they definitely can, because the low roll will be enough. Which means we're going to get bashed for 3, 4, 5 this turn. But then we do get to make a 2020. Yep, so there's a Goblin. 5 mana. Did they draw another Muxus? No, okay. Trashmaster. 5 damage here. and a Hierarch. So that's them hellbent. So this is 5 damage. So next turn we take 3, 6, 7, 8. Wait, are we dead next turn actually? Is this enough damage to kill us? So if we block here, we take 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is exactly lethal. Our little Noble Hierarch doing some work there, unfortunately. Do we have any exciting crop rotation targets that matter here? Our survey says no. Yeah, I think that a Noble Hierarch draw was weirdly like their best draw. But they do have haste goblins, so it's only possible they could draw some other bits and pieces. So they should be swinging out with everything. Archon's a good player, so I'm expecting them to do that. Yep, so if we block the biggest guy, we take 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we are 1 damage shy. I don't believe our opponent has any options to mess up now. Alright. We just needed 1 more life point to get there. Alright. We don't really have anything to blow up artifacts in this particular build. Do I want Not of This World? I think our opponent might be a Vile deck, but I don't think we're boarding in Null Rods just for that. Or Collector Ouphes. I think we're just going to roll back in like this. Like the Pithing Needle can stop some stuff. I don't think it's going to be doing that much though. But it can stop Conspicuous Snoop. So what does this hand do? Not win the game. So let's mulligan to one that does, shall we? No, but I don't want triple Pithing Needles in my opener. Okay, this is kind of a similar problem to the previous one. But I'll take it, I guess. We throw back a Pithing Needle. We're probably throwing back 2 Pithing Needles here. Since we're on 5. Sudden Shock can kill a spooky guy. So I think if we play the Dark Depths out, we can't Sudden Shock on the next turn. So it's kind of awkward. But if we play out the Dark Depths, we could draw an Urborg. I think we're supposed to play out the Confluence here. And we can represent a selection of things. There's a Cavern of Souls on Goblins, presumably. We're going to see the... okay, just a Lackey. Okay, we can kill that if we need to. Pithing Needle. Right, let's just say no to Goblin Lackeys. And then piece of fast mana would be excellent. A crop rotation is pretty good. So we definitely have some ways through this. Alright, there is a Lackey. Just a black mana source so we can put a first striker into play is fine. Alright, so there's the thing we wanted. So we play this one out. We try and work out what we crop rotate away. If we keep the stage, we're at least closer towards it. So we're going to have stage and Urborg in play after this. I think that's probably... is it the stage that goes or is it the needle? This is tough. What am I worried about from my opponent here? Conspicuous Snoop. Just randomly backdooring into something is kind of scary. So if we go and get an Urborg here, we're definitely getting an Urborg and casting our guy. What are we getting rid of? Do we get rid of the stage, or do we just get rid of the Confluence? The Confluence obviously means we're not going to struggle to cast some of our other spells. But this puts us closer towards being able to win. But I think if we're expecting this Hexmage to go the way, we're probably just getting rid of this stage for an Urborg, I think. It's an interesting choice. Alright, so I think we make this in our opponent's upkeep in case they have Wastelands. Didn't get to find our Hydroblasts to do things with those. But a 2020 is pretty respectable. Now they can have the Sting Scourger that bounces it. Our opponents should know if they're dead or not. There's the Wasteland that we've played around. A Wasteland in there, Cavern of Souls, and scooping it up. Alright, we got a game. Well, sorry, we've got the match against a regular player. I'm curious about their build. It does have Wastelands as well as the Soul Lands. It does look like a food chain type list because of the green mana, but it also has black mana as well. It could just be like a Jund Vile list. Hopefully we'll see them post it on Twitter at some point because they're always innovating and building stuff and they're a very good player. Alright, let's go to round 2. We've got a hand that's kind of an interesting one. So we can go turn 1... turn 1 Pithing Needle. Turn 2 this and this to Sylvan Scrying. So this is a turn 3 with Wasteland Protection. I think that's acceptable. We were on the draw. I'll take that. On the play, sorry, we'll take that. They've mulliganed to 6 cards. That doesn't mean very much. But if they go lower, then they're more likely to be something that's looking for specific pieces rather than just a playable hand. I think I will jam this Pithing Needle out into play. I'm going to name Wasteland. I don't think we blow 2 of these immediately for the Sylvan Scrying. Potentially we're supposed to have played that Lotus Petal down in case there's some sort of stop you casting things you want to cast. Okay, so we're looking at some sort of combo-y deck. Okay, maybe not, maybe not. Thoughtseize. So we're going to lose our Sylvan Scrying here. So that's definitely something that's punished us for not going on turn 1 to go and fetch it. Which could definitely come back to bite us. Pithing Needle, we've already cut off Wasteland, so I don't mind playing out our Dark Depths here, and I think I will play out this Lotus Petal. So we could have played around Discard by doing it right then, but it would have cost us more mana, but our hand is kind of just all fast mana, so maybe we should have done that. So we've got a Sylvan Scrying in exile. Do we think our opponent is going to Dauthi Voidwalker for a Sylvan Scrying? I don't think so, but I will cast this on Helm of Obedience. I don't think we're powering out an Elvish Spirit Guide here. We have the mana to cast a Sylvan Scrying and get it. Yeah, I really think we should have gone for that Sylvan Scrying on turn 1. Like, I didn't want to get jammed up by some stuff. Okay, that Urborg is great for us, so thank you for that, opponent. Right, we're going to take 3 here. Looking for some of our tutoring abilities. I guess we want to name Khan the Great Creator. That's a pretty scary permanent. Alright. So we've got 4 Hexmage, 4 Thespian Stage, 4 Crop Rotation, and 3 Sylvan Scrying. A grief. Sure. Goodbye, Elvish Spirit Guide. Our opponent's clock is pretty substantial now. So we do need to draw something. Not getting our thing off on turn 1 might prove for us. We can't play this without giving up our Lotus Petal. I don't think it's worth doing that because we can't block with it anyway. So we take 6 this turn. And then next turn, how are we going to block our opponent? That's a good question. I think our opponent has us this game. If we'd have just gone and got the Thespian Stage on turn 1, we would have won this game. So, interesting lesson there. Alright. So our opponent's on some kind of mono black list. What do I want to do about this? Opposition Agent is a thing we might have to worry about. We've seen Lotus Petals. I don't know if we're looking at something like Helm of Obedience or not, because our opponent might be on something more akin to the deck that I play, that I built for a European Legacy Master that kind of took off a bit. That deck is more into Wastelands. We didn't see any Soul Lands from our opponent either. So I kind of feel we're more in towards that side of things. So this Not of This World will be blank. Surgical Extraction and Duresses are kind of good. So the Duresses can take out Shoulder's Edict and things like that. And I don't mind having a Surgical Extraction as a thing we can do against some of their shenanigans. I think that's better than a Legolas's Quick Reflexes here. I think that's where we're at. Okay, this looks familiar, doesn't it? So we can keep this. So we can go Yavimaya. This time we can go and get our card. Like we should have done before. I'm going to get the Thespian Stage. Lotus Petal from our opponent. A grief. So they can take our Sylvan Scrying. But then the rest of their stuff doesn't really impact us because we're kind of ahead of that now. Dodging Wastelands would be nice. Are we going to see a reanimation? It's a 3/2 body. That's fine. A Dark Ritual. Is this going to be an opposition agent or something? 4 mana. We're going to see Shouldered. We're going to see Karn. Karn is a problem. It's going to be Liquid Metal Coating that's going to go find. There it is. Okay, this could prove troublesome for us. Maybe not as troublesome as you might think. So we can play our Thespian Stage here. And then if they can't and plus, we can crop rotate away and sort of have enough lands, because both of our lands tap for green, so we can wait for them to activate the coating. There is the coating. So they activate the coating, and as soon as they activate the Karn to try and blow this up, we then crop rot it into something else. Well, I say in something else, into the exact same thing. So our opponent's next turn will involve trying to get an ensnaring bridge going, I think. So we kind of have to hope our opponent doesn't have the mana for that, because I'm not sure how we're going to... I guess we do have things like Boseiju in our deck, which can help. So we'll play this one out. But we've already 2 Scryings down, so we've got 4 copies of Boseiju left in our deck, effectively. Right, so there's an Urborg. So they can get an ensnaring bridge here. Alright. There is the ensnaring bridge. I don't think we're supposed to make our 20/20 outs. Although if we do and we hit a Boseiju, then we do just win the game. But this does expose us to a Shoulder's Edict, but we're probably losing to that anyway. So I think we are supposed to go for it here. Exactly Shoulder's Edict. Exactly Boseiju, please. Alright, we did not hit exactly Boseiju, which is a little bit sad. We can play out our Mana Confluence. It taps for both of our colours anyway. I think we cast this Inquisition. A little bit awkward here. An Animate Dead isn't a big deal. Alright, so our opponent can go in us with a Liquid Metal Coating again. It's going to be a grief, is it? Is there... If we go and get a land here, how does that actually make our lives better? Because they're just going to coating in response anyway. Interesting. Okay, so lose the crop rotation. So they're going to coating us in... They should be coating in probably the Yavimaya. Yeah. Goodbye. So I need to draw Boseiju. Boseiju wins the game. Come on, deck. Pithing Needle. That doesn't hurt. That's something, isn't it? That's for black. Let's make a Pithing Needle. I think we named Karn the Great Creator here. Is that right? I think it still has to be the Karn, doesn't it? If we name the coating... So the coating can shut us off of a mana source for a turn, because Karn's static ability still works. But at least we are, you know, in the ballpark for drawing the right thing to win the game. And putting ourselves in a position where we can win. An Urborg. Okay, I will play this so that we have 3 lands. They might just not use the... Because the Liquid Metal Coating is basically a Rishadan port here, and if they port us off of green, then that can cause us some issues here. But that only works for 1 turn cycle after we've drawn the Boseiju. Alright, it just won't work. Actually, no, it still work because this will get hit by that. Yep, sure. We'll leave this in hand in case our opponent's got any sort of Thoughtseize action. I imagine our opponent is just going to... Interesting, they're going for the Ghost Quarter. I imagine our opponent is just going to draw up to 3 cards and then attack with the Grief and just use this as their way of winning the game, because obviously our Marit Lage is never going to attack while the Ensnaring Bridge is in play, because they're never going to be below... they're never going to be above 20 cards. And this is Menace, so we can't block. So they've got themselves in a good position. We will play out this Mana Confluence. This means they can't Liquid Metal Coating to take us off of our green mana for Boseiju. So we're just trying to draw... We got 4 cards on our deck that win us the game here. We just need to draw them in a timely enough fashion. Now our opponent might have drawn like something like a Shoulder's Edict at this point, which would definitely be bad news for us. But one problem at a time. Okay, I think our opponent's got a discard spell, the way they tapped a mana and then decided against it. It's the impression I was given then. Alright, they're porting down our Ghost Quarter. Boseiju, please. A Duress. That's not that exciting here, is it? What would they have now that they haven't cast? Probably is a discard spell. We'll take a card out of their hand. I'm not expecting this to be particularly useful. Karn the Great Creator, a Thoughtseize. Do I care about these things? If somehow the Karn gets to do stuff, I'd rather it didn't. Does that make sense? Maybe we can get some Elvish Spirit Guide beatdown in the near future. But if we tap our Confluence for coloured mana, we have to be careful that we don't reduce the clock that the Grief can do, unless obviously it's going to be winning us the game. Alright. Bit of a weird one. A Vampire Hexmage. This is interesting because this means we get to block their grief now. The Traxxas in our opponent's hand is very interesting. They're clearly on like a more reanimation heavy build than I would have thought. So if the grief attacks, we do get to kill it now. So we're insulated against a bunch of stuff. Let's see here, something like an Entomb. They want to Thoughtseize us. Sure, you can take this card that does nothing. Oh, they're Thoughtseizing themselves. Okay, that makes sense. They've got Animate Dead and Tomb of Urami. If you're unfamiliar with this, you sacrifice all your lands and make a 5/5 demon. So they get to make their Atraxa here. That's pretty good. Let's see how bad this is for us. Right, so a lot of swamps here. 2 Entombs, 2 Reanimates. So they're going to take Reanimate, Entomb, Karn, and a land of some description. Probably not the Urborg because I already have one. Might be the Shizo. So they can just put another large monster into play right now. Yeah, they are much more reanimatory than I thought. We didn't really see enough of their deck in the game 1 there. The game 1 we could have won. Okay, there's an Archon of Cruelty. There is the Reanimate. This will cost us our Vampire Hexmage here. I think is acceptable. So blowing up the Ensnaring Bridge does come at a pretty hefty cost because their Archon of Cruelty gets to crack back. So we need to be able to blow it up and get Sejiri Steppe. And we have to do all of that before our opponent kills us with this grief in 2 turns. So things not looking great for us. Do I care about that enough to do anything? No, that's fine. A Thespian's Stage. So we take 3 this turn. So we need to make a creature next turn just to be able to block the grief. If we can find another creature, that'll be okay. So Hexmage or a Elvish Spirit Guide. Either of those can keep us in this game for a little bit longer. Right. We will not block because we do not have the ability to. I'm going to Liquid Metal Coating us down. Alright, Surgical Extraction. That's no good. GG's opponents. We should have won the first game, I think. We should have just gone to get our bits and pieces. But the reason I didn't want to was because if our opponent is playing something that requires us to go and get like a Bojuka Bog, then we can do that. Or if our opponent is going to be messing with our land, so we can't just go 1, 2, 3 and just get the pieces. But maybe we should have just gone for it and just said, look, we can play around discard. Alright, unfortunate one that. We also didn't get a very good read of our opponent's deck. I didn't realise they were like fully into this Reanimator thing. So, yeah, we kind of got bested by something that was a little bit unorthodox and unusual. They definitely had an advantage over us because of that as well. Alright, let's go to round 3. What does this hand do? We have a turn 1 piece of hand disruption. Turn 2 we get our thing. Turn 3 we make it with backup. I think this is acceptable. It's not really the blistering starts I like to have. But we've got some interaction and we've got some protection. Certain draws can speed this up. So, for example, Dark Depths or the crop rotation speed us up a turn. Right, Pen kept on 6. There's an Ancient Tomb and nothing. Alright. Unlikely to be a wasteland deck, which is good news for us. So let's play out this Inquisition and see what our opponent's doing over there. Another Karn deck. And they're going to play this Karn on the next turn. Yeah, not really enjoying these Karns being all up in our business, really. And they are a wasteland deck as well, which I was not expecting. There's a City of Traitors. Okay. Karn. Yep. Karn is scarier than Blood Moon a lot of the time. Right, what is this going to go and get them? Liquid Metal Coating. One would imagine. There it is. Okay. What are we doing now? We're drawing... not that. That's not very helpful. If we play the mine out... God, it's going to be so hard to get through all this. So we Sylvan Scrying this turn for Dark Depths. Next turn, if they don't take out our Urborg, we can put our 2020 into play, and then we just need to try and get this Boseiju to do enough to get us to win this game. But there is a Wasteland over there and a Liquid Metal Coating, so we might just lose both of our lands. And that's going to be rubbish. Yeah, I think we might be bested here. Now, the other option we had was to just hold up and blow up this Liquid Metal Coating. So they only get one go off of it. Maybe that's better. But the problem is, they still have a Karn in play. It just has so many answers to what we're trying to accomplish. I don't think we can win here. Yeah, the turn 2 Karn on the play is a lot. So maybe we're going to want these Null Rods here, because our opponent's deck looks pretty colourless heavy. I don't think you play Wastelands, Ancient Tomb, and Urza's Saga in a deck that's playing coloured mana sources, really. So, out with the Knot of this World, in with the Null Rods. Our Pithing Needle is going to be good. I don't think this is going to be a Bojuka Bog style matchup, so I wouldn't mind having some more Duresses to deal with some of our opponent's nonsense over there. Do we need a Sejiri Steppe? Unlikely. Maybe trim one petal. You never know with a Sejiri Steppe. Alright, this is a turn 3 2020. Is that good enough considering what we've seen of our opponent's deck? I don't think it is. This does look pretty good though, because we can really mess with our opponent's stuff here. One of these has got to go. It's probably a crop rotation, because we kind of need to get actual lands out of our deck for this to really do what it needs to. But we've seen the Urza Saga, we've seen the Wasteland, so we're going to play Mana Confluence, playing Pithing Needle, naming Wasteland. That's going to be our turn 1 play. Turn 2 we're going to play Null Rod, and hope that that does the things we require it to. Our opponent's like mono brown something, like maybe like Cloud Post. Doesn't look like Mystic Forge because they've got the Wasteland, which is an unusual one to find, but maybe they just wanted some more lands and that ended up being one of the ones they kept. We'll see. This for a Chalice on 1 could be slightly irritating by stopping our crop rotation, but it's not the end of the world. A Mox Diamond as well. Just all the mana acceleration they can put together in colourless over there. Okay. They decided they didn't want the Wasteland. Fair enough. An Elvish Spirit Guide. I don't hate having that. Are we... I think we're playing this Boseiju and just jamming a Null Rod here. If they're wasting time and mana on... Time resources on this Mox Diamond, so obviously pitched a land for it. So let's just say no to their artifacts. Is this a card our opponent can beat? Yes, we've seen the Urza Sagas, we've seen the Karn. Between them they can definitely beat this. Right, there. Speak of the devil. There it is. Alright, so we want to win before this ticks off, because they might have a thing that answers what we're doing. A crop rotation. So if we crop rotate both of these, that doesn't really get us where we need to go. But if we Sylvan Scrying, if we go and get the Dark Depths, it's just in play. And then we can get the Thespian stage doing some stuff later. Yeah, we got 2 crop rotations for next turn. So I'm just going to play this one out. In emergency, we can pitch our Spirit Guide to crop rotate. So their thing's going to go to 2 counters. And then we're going to make a 2020. And we should be able to dodge Pithing Needle, and Ether Spellbomb is cut off by Null Rod. So I think we are okay for the most part here. Karn the Great Creator. Oh, I hate Karn the Great Creator so much. Ah, I'm going to go and get Ensnaring Bridge here. We have 1 Boseiju in play, which means we have 1 left in the deck. Liquid Metal Coating is what they've gone for. Okay. Pithing Needle. We could name Liquid Metal Coating. No, there's no point naming Liquid Metal Coating. It doesn't do anything under Karn anyway. So if we... just trying to work out how we can name Urza Saga. So we want to name Urza Saga. We want to name Karn. Interesting. So if we turn this into a Yavimaya, and then turn this into a Thespian stage, that's enough mana to then use the Spirit Guide to play Pithing Needle. That seems reasonable. Yavimaya, so tap this for green. Tap this for green. Well, I'd rather keep a Yavimaya or the Mana Confluence. Mana Confluence kind of does it all, colour-wise. So maybe we're supposed to just get rid of this Yavimaya now. So we go and get Thespian Stage. And this copy is this. Keep the one without counters. Are we naming Khan or are we naming as a Saga? This can only find artifacts. They're unlikely to be able to kill our stuff here. I don't think we just cast this. We name Khan. I think we beat the Urza Saga constructs handily here. So they can't go and get Ensnaring Bridge here. They can't get Pithing Needle to shut down our Thespian Stage line because we've already got the 2020. Not sure what they can get here. Making a guy. Okay. Pithing Needle. Just going to name Thespian Stage. Or it could name Vampire Hexmage. Sure. Do they have a colourless answer for our Marit Lage? Oh, they drew the one of Caracas. It's not our day today, that's for sure. Yikes. Ah, dear, oh dear. And then we immediately draw the answer to it. Okay. Pretty annoying. Sometimes it isn't your day. And today feels like one of those days. So I should make another guy here. And they can crash us for 5 this turn. Sure, this is just a thing to pump there. I don't think they have any intention of removing our permanents. Unless they've got something really big and they can just start taking chunks. Like the 7 mana car and just start taking whatever they want. Liquid coating, this just pumps their guy. So it's a 6 power guy, so they attack for 6. And then next turn they have lethal. I'd be very surprised there was more than one copy of Caracas in our opponent's deck. So you've got to laugh, really. So we can play this out. This buys us a turn. Then what are we doing with that extra turn? How do we get out from underneath it? So we play this out. We can chump block. And then what? We just die on the next turn. Yeah, we're just dead here. Oh, that's pretty gross. Is that the match as well? Yeah. Like, the game 1, they played out their Khan super early. And they just got to go to town with it. And, you know, fair enough. This one, we don't know. They might have been sandbagging this Caracas for a while. We don't know. But having the Caracas there was pretty tilting. But there you go. That's magic. Sometimes you're the person who draws the thing and ruins your opponent's day. Sometimes it happens to you. You just got to take it in stride and play enough games and it comes back around. Let's go to round 4. Our hand has Thoughtseize into turn 3. Another piece of fast mana makes it turn 2. I think this is a keep. Hexmage makes it turn 2 as well. A Chrome Mox. And we're going to be playing some goblins. We can test out these Hydroblast perhaps. Tishana's Tidebender. Playing against good old Merfolk. Interesting. They've got some tricksy things like the Stifley guy and the Bounce guy. So we're going to have to watch out for those a little bit. But Merfolk is not renowned for being the most amazing deck in the world. Right, we have a... we'll play out our Lotus Petal here. In case we need to pay for a daze or something. Well, we don't have to pay for a daze. Well, they could hard cast a daze from here. Force of Will, pitching Thassa's Oracle. Interesting. On our Lotus Petal, that's very interesting. Paradigm Shift. I see. We will take your Paradigm Shift. Right, so our opponent is on the Lash Gordon deck. I'm a big fan of the deck, so it's pretty cool. So next turn we can pick apart their hand a little bit more. A Curse Catcher. They're on like a more Merfolk heavy build. So it might have that Pure Sight Mero that you can do stuff with that lets you mess with their entire... so they can deck themselves in a different fashion. Right, let's just take this one card that we know they've got. Would you like to sacrifice your Curse Catcher to make me tap my Thespian Stage? Goodbye, fish. Next turn, we make a 20/20. That seems pretty strong for us. And even if they can like get the mana to Thought Lash, if they had like Thought Lash this turn, next turn draw. Actually, they can't even do it because this doesn't give them blue. Okay. Do I believe our opponent has Wastelands in their deck? We can play around it next turn with a Ghost Quarter, so we're just going to make it end of turn, if possible. So play a Wasteland, we just hold it up, play the Ghost Quarter, and then we can force action. Right, they're attacking first, so that's suspicious. I think we do go for it here. If we give our opponent enough time to draw, they're going to get into something somewhere along the lines. Yep, okay, there's a concession. So, Merfolk. Sudden Shock. That probably does some stuff here. They're also a paradigm shift deck, which means maybe we want some Duresses. This is kind of an awkward one. We didn't see the actual Thought Lash. So they might be Pure Sight Mero. It's uncertain how useful these Pithing Needles are going to be. I don't think we want the Bojuka Bog. I might just end up helping our opponent, and I'm not really convinced that we're too big into Pithing Needle. They probably will have some bounce spells, though. We could play something like Surgical Extraction, so we can just like surgically extract a Thassa's Oracle after we've hit it with Inquisition or a Thoughtseize. That's an option. I'm not really convinced it's a very good one. How good is this Pithing Needle going to be? You can name Curse Catcher. They might have some sort of wasteland, so I'd rather hedge on the side of maybe we can get through that way. Let's try that. Very interesting Force of Will on our Lotus Petal. First game. This doesn't look great. I think we're going to have to be sending this one back. This one plays. We have some permanents here that do stuff. And then we keep this. I don't think we get to do everything we want to do here. We can do a rest on turn 1 if that's a thing we really want to do. But we are playing kind of into Force of Will with this. One of these has got to go back in the deck. I'm more inclined to keep the Scrying than the Crop Rotation, because they're a blue deck. Like, we can just draw an Urborg or something like that on turn 1, that'd be great. Even a Mana Confluence is fine, or a Gemstone Mine. Lots of potential draws for us. Alright, Cavern Souls on Wizard this time. Sure. Another Dark Depths. Not really what we came to do, was it? Play Thespian stage and play as Lotus Petal. So we could cast a Duress now. It does come at a significant cost to us, though. We could Sylvan Scrying for a black source here. I think is probably what I'm going to do. This can go and find us an Urborg. So next turn we can cast our Duress, and then turn after we can make a 20/20. Our opponent can cast Paradigm Shift this turn off of like fetch, and then just win on the next turn. And there's not a great deal we can do to stop that. Unless we Ghost Quarter them and they don't have another land to play their guy. An Ancient Tomb. It's going to be Laboratory Maniac. Okay. Interesting. So they might just be able to win all at once. Let's try and Duress our opponent now. Thought Lash, Echoing Truth. Next turn they can put the Thought Lash in and win the game that way. So I guess we have to take this Thought Lash. And then we're going to be trying to find... So the other option there is take the Echoing Truth and hope they don't draw another blue card. Which doesn't sound like a great plan to me in their mono blue deck. So I think we just take the thing that says you win the game on it for them. And then try and find one of our answers to Echoing Truth. Whether that's a piece of discard, a Not of This World, or a Crop Rotation. Either of them should do it. They're probably on the beatdown for a few turns. Obviously, if they try and play this Echoing Truth, one of these Chromoxes out, so they can hold up Echoing Truth, they're going to need to imprint their Oracle or whatever blue card they drew this turn. So we should get some information about what's in their hand. Right, the Oracle. Doesn't mean they didn't draw another blue card, but whatever blue card they drew, they think is better. Right, so we have this. Now we could just do the combo, let them bounce it, and then do the combo again. But we don't need to do that this turn, because we wouldn't be able to deploy it next turn. So what we'll do, we'll take one more draw step, and then we'll make it, and then if they bounce it, we then just make it again. Snow-covered island. They could have the Tishana's Tidebender, the thing to mess with us a little bit. A Sudden Shock. That is an interesting card that we can hold up, isn't it? So if we play the Thespian stage out this turn, we might be able to get our opponent with their own Laboratory Maniac at some point. So this turn we can make a copy of this, and then if they, or when they bounce it, we then get to just play another one the turn after. If they play Thought Lash, then we have to hold open our Well, if they play Thought Lash, they die. Well, they don't die, they get exile 20, right? And they kill us on their turn. Yeah. So they play Thought Lash, we hold up the Sudden Shock instead. We could have forced them action with, in the main step, but in the combat step, but it's not going to make a difference. They're just going to bounce it anyway. Let's make a 2020. Let's get this bounced. Oh, they're not supposed to let us go to draw step. I think they're supposed to let us untap at all, to be honest. I think they're supposed to just bounce this. Well, they're certainly giving us a chance. So we're going to go to attacks with our little Marit Lage. It's going to get bounced. And then we now get to hold up Sudden Shock and the Dark Depths. So we'll play out this Lotus Petal so we can hold up Sudden Shock. We'll play out this Dark Depths. So that way if they do some weird line to try and win the game off this Lab Maniac, we can just blow it up before they take that draw. And they're going to have a bad time. What wizard spell are they casting here? Other Merfolk you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice, counter target, non-creature spell unless its controller plays 1. Okay, that doesn't do anything here. Do you think our opponent's got another way of blowing up our creature? Not really halfway towards the combo again anyway. So we may as well attack. Do I think they have a sorcery speed way that can kill our guy? Possibly. I think there's a Merfolk that bounces guys that is like sorcery speed. And you try and put them in off vials. I don't really know about Merfolk that much because people don't really play Merfolk. Maybe that is a flash creature that I'm playing around at sorcery speed. But if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, it won't. So, right, let's make our second Marit Lage of the game. They have the Tidebender. They're supposed to do it to stifle our Thespian stage activation because this will go back on the stack, I believe. Wizard Cycling. All right. This doesn't work the way they want it to, right? That permanent artifact, creature, or planeswalker. This isn't going to work the way they want it to, I believe. Because what's going to happen is they're going to counter this, but then it's going to recheck, and it's going to say there's no ice counters on it. Because it's a state-based effect that it checks. We can also make another 2020 here. So if they do that onto the Thespian stage activation instead, that's way better. Our opponent was just asking us about the interaction with how, like what we're talking about with where you stifle on this. But, you know, this is a good learning experience. That's what leagues are for. You can learn stuff. So, I don't think our opponent wins even if they do stifle our thing there because we untap. We then can play a Hexmage if we want to, which also gives us the ability to play the Sudden Shock as well. So we kind of just covered from all bases there, I think. So it was a bit of a tough one for our opponent. I'd like to see more of their deck, though, because I do like the sort of Thought Lash, Lash Gordon style decks. This one seems a bit more interesting. We've got some Wizard Cycling stuff and some cool fish and things. So yeah, interesting. All right, we're going to final round looking for the positive record. Our hand makes a turn 3 2020. We're on the draw, so we're not going to clock our opponent for quite some time. We need to go for something faster here. Turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Crop Rotate into Urborg, play Hexmage, kill them. Alright, we keep this, we throw away Adepts. And we see how we go. Not looking forward to our opponent just jamming a Wasteland at us, but okay. Verdant Catacombs, Lotus Petal. This makes me think... Okay, I was going to say this makes me think the Epic Storm, but this is not what we're looking at here. So this can be a little bit brutal for us with this Grief. If they reanimate it as well, they're going to get some stuff out of it. So our opponent's probably playing mono, red-black Reanimator. So they can take out our Crop Rotation as well here if they reanimate on this. Or Rescamimator, I think people are calling this deck. Because it's like Reanimator, but with a much deeper scam package than you would normally expect. Usually runs Trolls as well, I believe. Now, they might just be on the standard red-black Reanimator, which does have this start available to it as well. But we are not feeling amazing with how this game is going now. Alright, let's take a look at our opponent's hand. A Witherbloom Apprentice. That's pretty important information to have. Even if we lose this one, at least I know that that guy's there. He is someone that likes to get hit by the old Sudden Shock, that's for sure. Alright, we're going to take 2 damage from this Grief. An Elvish Spirit Guide. I believe we play out our Dark Depths here. And we pass the turn. If we draw a Thespian stage, we can make it 20-20 and win the game. If we draw a crop rotation, we're just 1 mana off. Got some pretty reasonable draws ahead of us. A crop rotation. So 1 mana here, 2 mana here. If we draw any land, we get to win the game. We also have an emergency Bojuka Bog if that's the thing we have to worry about. I'm not a massive fan of having to crop rotate our Gemstone Mine here, but I think we do have to do that. Alright, let's go and get a Thespian stage. Right, so they're going to take our over Spirit Guide. So we need to draw Urborg or Yavimaya. So 5 draws will make us a 20-20 this turn, but we can just hit run around a land is also fine. Or we can hit a Thoughtseize. But we still got a few turns of getting beaten down by this grief where we aren't taking huge amounts of damage. Okay, Lotus Petal, that's harmless. Give me my Urborg, please. Not of this world. Well, if we ever make a guy, they're certainly not going to target it, that's for sure. Witherbloom Apprentice into play. Okay. That does give them the ability to just top deck a win out of nowhere. But it also just doubles their clock, which is the real problem for us right now. Alright, we drew a Yavimaya, so we get to do the thing, as long as they don't draw Chain of Smog. Alright, we managed to get there through the hand disruption, which is why I quite like this into some of these more hand disruption-y decks. This feels like a matchup where I would like some Surgical Extractions and Duresses. I don't think this is a matchup where Not of This World is going to do much. The Pithing Needle doesn't feel great here either, so we'll trim that. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? We're going to want this Sudden Shock as well. Is there anything we might want to Pithing Needle here? Fetches, Troll of Khazad-dûm, possibly Grizzlebrand. I'm just trying to think if there's anything we'd rather run instead of these needles. And we don't... I guess we could run Quick Reflexes as like a sort of pseudo removal spell. That might be better still because we can play out a Hexmage and then try and kill their little friend with it. Maybe that's better than the Pithing Needle? I'm not wholly familiar with what's in our opponent's deck is the issue. I think we'll go back in with just 2 Pithing Needles. We can pivot into... like they could even have like a Karn board. Certainly wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility for these sorts of decks when they're trying to ramp something cool out. This hand doesn't do our thing. This hand does our thing. So we'll keep this. And I think it's the needle that goes. Alright, let's see how bad this gets for us. Alright. A Thoughtseize. So we are going to lose our Sylvan Scrying, I believe. We lost a Sudden Shock. Okay, so our opponent might be trying to kill us next turn. With a combo. Can we do anything about that? I don't believe we can. If they just Dark Ritual and have the 2 combo pieces, we just lose here. Such is the way of things. We don't get to do anything with this Boseiju either. They've already shown us they've got enough basics. Alright, so there's this guy. Do they have Dark Ritual into Chain of Smog? Our survey says no. Alright. Let's see what we can materialize. Play this. Green, green. Sylvan Scrying for our Thespian stage. Are they going to Dark Ritual into Opposition Agent? That would be kind of annoying. Oh, they're entombing here. Interesting. So we could have used the Petal here, so we could have gone and got the Bojuka Bog here. But we've already played our land for the turn, so that's not going to cut it. So we want a Thespian stage here. And put it as Lotus Petal. If they have Animate Dead, we get to Boseiju the Animate Dead. But obviously this Archon is pretty big news. Like, they wouldn't have entombed if we'd have gone and got Bojuka Bog anyway. They're basically just... if we hadn't played our land, they just wait. Okay, so it's a reanimate they're doing here. Oakley dokley. So we're going to lose one of our Gemstone Mines. We're going to need to find a way of dealing with this Archon of Cruelty. How do we do that? We make our 2020, then we might just be dead this turn anyway. Yeah, so we make our 2020 and then we try and push through using a Sejiri Steppe. That's the plan here. Chain of Smog. Alright, so they're just dead here. We're just dead here, sorry. Alright, they had the combo as well as a nice little backup plan of the Reanimator. Interesting. Not really seeing much I want these Pithing Needles for. Am I seeing anything I want these things for? Not really. We can shut off their Lotus Petals. They might have Chrome Moxes as well. It will cost us our Lotus Petals to do that though, which is kind of a big deal. I think we're just going in with these Needles. So having Hydroblasts instead of Sudden Shocks really not helping us in this matchup. Okay, so we have turn 1 Hand Disruption, turn 2 Hand Disruption, turn 3 kill them. Alright, that's... I've definitely kept worse hands. I think we do the Inquisition first. Animate Dead, Chain of Smog, Thoughtseize. I don't want to get Thoughtseized here, so I'm going to take their Thoughtseize. Alright, playing face up into what our opponent's playing is nice. We get to plan accordingly. So they can go and cycle this Generous Ent. Or they draw another Thoughtseize. Alright, there's the Generous Ent. So they can animate Dead us if they want to. We're going to draw here. An Elvish Spirit. Does that change anything here? Black, black. Crop rotate it into... Do you think our opponent can kill us next turn with what they have? I don't believe they can. Does this have reach? It does have reach. Enters the battlefield, create a food token. Do we care about that? Like, we can take it one turn slower and make sure they don't get a Generous Ent into play. Because if we take it 10... If we don't do this now... So if we do this now, they'll put the Generous Ent into play. We attack. They fog for a turn. They also fog for a second turn because of the food token. So I think we're supposed to duress our opponent here. I think that makes the most sense. Chain of Smog, Animate Dead. I think that means we take the Animate Dead here. We don't want the Generous Ent in play. And then we'll play out this Gemstone Mine. And then we will pass the turn. And next turn we can do stuff. Like, we can still do an emergency Bojuka Bog. I don't want to do that though, but it's a thing that we can do. If they just fire off a Chain of Smog at us, okay, they don't want to do that. That's pretty reasonable. Sylvan Scrying. It's not really what we're about right now, is it? So I think we play this one out. Cast this for black and black. Put our little friend into play. And then we can go and make a 2020 when the time is right. We can also Bojuka Bog if something scary is going to happen. And then we can just get the 2020 next turn with the Sylvan Scrying anyway. With a Bloom Apprentice. Alright, so they reanimate this. We will lose the game. If they can reanimate it and for 1 mana. With an actual reanimate. So our opponent's got some cards in hand here. Let's crop rotate away this Gemstone Mine that's going to die anyway. Okay, our opponent scooped it up to the Dark Depths there. So we managed to come away in this league with a 3-2, which is a reasonable record. Obviously, it's not what we're aiming for, but if we look at the matchups we lost to the Karn deck, the colorless Karn deck that in game 1, they were on the play. They started liquid metal coating us pretty early on. It was a bit too fast for what we could do. And then game 2, they drew their one of Caracas. Now, they might have already had it in hand and were sandbagging it to get us, so that's certainly a possibility. They might have kept their hand on the strength of it, but we kind of had a lot of stuff covered, and that was basically the one singleton in their deck that we really couldn't do anything about, and they had it. So I feel that was a bit unlucky. If we went to another game, we again have these really powerful sideboard cards like Collector Ouphe and Null Rod, so I think on average we should be winning that matchup. The other matchup we lost was the mono black Karn deck, where they just had one too many things to get us. And again, it was very close for us, even though I think it was an 0-2 in the end in that match as well. But the games we lost weren't like us just doing nothing. We definitely had lines to win that game multiple times. And in the first game, if we'd have just gone and fetched our Thespian stage, we could have played around the discard they had, but I wanted to keep it in case we needed to get something like a Boseiju, or we needed to get some other mana because we were having our coloured mana messed around or whatever. So I'm not sure. I think I would probably make the same play again, because these scammy decks have dissipated from the meta a little bit. They're not as popular as they were. So playing around discard isn't necessarily as important as having more options to play on the next turn. But some people would probably make that play differently. And I definitely think there's merit for it. So I'm not 100% sure if I would change my play in the same situation again. Alright, let's talk about the deck. So, what do we want to test today was Hydroblast out of the sideboard as an answer to Moon, as well as being good against a lot of the red decks that are running around in the format right now. Like, it can blow up a Dragon's Rage Channeler if that's something you're kind of interested in. I'm not really sure it is, but we can board it in against these Painter decks that can go underneath us if we need to. We can board it in against the Mono Red Prison decks. We board it in against the Initiative. We can board it in against the Turbo Muxus deck, as well as Vile Goblins too. So, again, I like what Hydroblast has to offer us. We just never really got to see it, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm sure we can run some more leagues and try it again. How was the rest of the deck today? We certainly got a lot of matchups where the Not of This World wasn't very good, which is something that's just going to happen sometimes. But I think having the best game one deck where you're just very reliable at doing your thing with the maximum amount of things of like, okay, I'm just going to be able to ignore everything my opponent's doing, push them all to the side. Okay, we'll ignore your Wastelands with Pithing Needle. We'll ignore all your removal spells, Not of This World. You know, we'll ignore your edicts or whatever with our Thoughtseizes. We're just going to kind of do our plan. So I do think having the 4 Not of This World in the main deck makes sense, especially when you look how popular the sort of white removal heavy decks are. This at least gives us a way to try and steal game one a little bit. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this current list. I've run some slightly different builds, like -1 Elvish Spirit Guide or -1 Boseiju to run some other things, or trimming the protection we have in the form of the Not of This World and Thoughtseizes and Inquisitions and Pithing Needles. You can adjust those. If you're really interested in this deck, I do have a detailed guide on my Patreon, which is in the description below, where I talk about all the card choices and I talk about the core of the deck and sort of what I see as the must-have slots. And then you've got quite a bit to play in terms of like how are you rounding out your protection. So like you're always going to be running like 3 Pithing Needles. You're probably always going to be running like 3 Not of This World. These discard spells, they can be different things as well. The second Boseiju can be different things. You know, there's a little bit of push and pull, and the primer also goes into detail about the differences between Green-Black Turbodepths as well as Rainbow Depths, and sort of has like how you build each one slightly differently. So it's like a comprehensive guide to both of those decks, really. So if you are interested, obviously I have a financial incentive for you to check it out. But I am quite proud of the content I've put out on there, and I do love this deck, and I hope more people start jamming it. Let me know your thoughts on Hydroblast. I think people were running Flusterstorm in sideboards for a while, but when we're trying to deal with things like Leyline Binding and Solitude killing our guys, I just don't think Flusterstorm cuts it anymore. Because if we're using that as a piece of protection, which is kind of what Flusterstorm generally was, it was, okay, we can protect against this removal spell, etc., as well as being useful against the decks that go underneath you. It's still useful against those decks that go underneath us, but it's no longer a viable removal, no longer a viable answer to an opposing removal spell. So I just don't think Flusterstorm is where I want to be. Obviously, Flusterstorm would be in this Legolas' Quick Reflexes slot rather than the Hydroblast. This is in the, for this particular build, it's in the Sudden Shock / Force of Vigor, Dismembery type plan. Like, generally I am on Team Sudden Shock, but I do think the prevalence of red decks right now, and the fact that Turbo Muxus can just go underneath us quite effectively, I think having the Hydroblast will bear out quite nicely over time, but we just need to test some more and try it out. So I'll undoubtedly be playing this. I play it most weeks, to be honest, and I'll be sort of dipping in between this and the green-black build, trying out different things to see how it fares in the meta right now. You never know, maybe Stifle will come back again, because Stifle is a good main deck tool against those goblin decks, because you can Stifle the Muxus trigger, which is kind of doing a very similar thing to what we're doing with Hydroblast, except Hydroblast actually kills Blood Moon and things, which is important for us. But the Stifles would be instead of the 2 Inquisitions of Kozilek. So maybe we'll do that. I do love Stifle as a card. I don't particularly like it in this deck, but I know people are big fans of playing it in Turbodepths. So maybe we'll jam some very discard light builds by getting rid of these Inquisitions, putting them into the sideboard over the Duresses and having 2 Stifles main, and try that out and see how it feels. Alright, we are done for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my content coming out this year. I'm really hoping to grow the channel a lot, so I appreciate everyone watching, and if you know anyone who's interested in Legacy, by all means send them my way, and sort of let me know what you want to see this year on the channel. Not necessarily like, oh, I want to see this deck and this deck, but if there's any ways that you think I can improve my content in terms of changing the way that I'm presenting it, or the decks I select as like a general rule. Do you want to see more competitive decks? Do you want to see sort of wackier, less competitive decks? You know, just let me know, and I'm going to have a good time playing Legacy unless I'm playing like a handful of decks I don't particularly get on with. But I still play them from time to time because that's how you learn things. But I want to know what you want to see, and I want to make my content as good for you as possible and get as many people playing and watching Legacy as we can, because it really is the best way to play Magic the Gathering. Alright, rambling over. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.